this computer. So Joanna, thanks for sharing today about Younergy Portugal, where you are basically installing the solar rooftops already for a year, right? You have been developing it, and this year, 2023, the first emissions of Younergy Crypto tokens that will be funding solar rooftops, those will be also installed in Portugal. So this is great that you're sharing your time with us today. And I would tell that you just go ahead, introduce yourself, and also just hit the ground running. And I will just make sure to maybe stop and ask questions and emphasize, but feel free to share. And also, yeah, let's get this exchange going.
Thank you very much. So a bit about myself. My name is Joana. I work in Younergy Portugal. My background is in engineering. So I actually joined the company a few years ago when I worked first as a project engineer. And so I have my bachelor in environmental engineering, which I took in Lisbon. And then a master's focused on renewable energies, which was a double degree master's in 2 universities, in the same one in Lisbon and then also in Sweden. And as I was saying, I started in Younergy first as an engineer, and slowly have been moving into a more business-oriented role. And right now I am a business developer for the Portuguese operations. The company, for who doesn't know, Younergy is a Swiss-based company. It was funded in 2015 by Pedro and Manuel. One of them is Portuguese and the other is Spanish, so there was a clear already idea that after Switzerland, they wanted to move to the Iberian Peninsula. But it took something like 6-7 years where the business in Switzerland evolved. We say it's in Switzerland, it's a vertical business because it starts with the first communication and leads coming in from different sources. So there's a whole sales team, there's the engineering and design happening in-house, and also the installations and then maintenance of solar systems for a rooftop, both in the residential and commercial and industrial sectors. But the whole value chain is inside the company. The vision from the funders was then to how can we scale in other countries, but without needing to build this structure in each new country, which takes a long time to do. So outside of Switzerland, there's a slightly different business model, which is where I work in. We call it the platform business model, where basically Younergy's figure is more of a financer, a solar fund, and is financing still solar systems for self-consumption in the commercial and industrial space by purchasing these solar assets directly from installers from each of these countries, and then selling the energy that these systems produce to the end users, the companies, so the owners of the buildings where the systems will be installed, via these contracts, which are called PPA contracts, which stands for Power Purchase Agreement. So
that's also super interesting that we see here basically the various evolutions a firm can have, like this vertical business, but then also making use of platform and platform economies, network effects, the solar partners, taking from the vertical business things that can be scaled and used for scaling and creating a platform out of that, which is super cool because YC finance as a finance of a feature that docks onto that is bringing on the protocol the protocol business, if you would want to call it that. And I'm just narrating this for the people in Web3 and crypto, where it's always a question about, is it a product, a platform, or protocol? And with Younergy and Younergy Crypto, we will really see the interplay of all these business architectures, if you will. So that's quite interesting. And one question or clarification also, the the plants under management in Switzerland, are they also commercial and industrial, or how is the makeup there?
It's mostly residential. So the vast majority of clients in Switzerland are residential. And in Switzerland also the company is installing and selling these plants directly. So it's a mixture of selling it to the end user, to the homeowners, as well as financing them and doing these PPA contracts. There are also some commercial industrial clients and some other typologies of clients like schools that Younergy is managing. So this is a mixture of plants that Younergy built themselves, sold, is managing under our platform, which I'll speak a bit as well.
Go ahead.
So this platform, which is called Younergy, it's a proprietary software that the company developed in order to manage all these assets and all these plants that need daily monitoring and maintenance and operation activities. Of course, billing, which in the end is how we make money. So this is how it enables us in the platform business for a very lean structure. We're not a big team. We're a few people. We used to be 3. Now we're a bit more, but I didn't mention that also in Spain, we started in 2020, just before COVID. And then a year later in 2021, we started in Portugal. So this is the start of this business model that is now also expanding to other countries. So I would say in the first year, obviously it's a lot about building the documents, the networks, meeting these solo partners, as you mentioned before, are these companies, local companies. They can be installers, engineering companies, finders that have clients that are looking for a finance solution. So we partner with them to offer this solution. And then a year later, last year, we brought on our first plants live. So here I have 2 examples. Actually, the one on the left is our first client, which is a supermarket in the north of Portugal, where we built a carport. And then on the right-hand side is a very special project because it's just 20 minutes away from our office, walking. So it's in the center of Lisbon, and it's a swimming club, a very old club, over 100 years old, and they decided to go solar. So that's very exciting.
No, and the carports, it looks perfect. Like all the cars just waiting to get old enough to be replaced by electric vehicles, for sure.
That's the next step.
And the sizes are quite big, right? So the average size is 138.5 kilowatt peaks. Yeah. Could you give? Well, I guess the pictures make an example. Like how big is that?
So something we finance from 30 kilowatts up to 4 megas, and 30 kilowatts is something like 100 panels. While these are already many hundreds of panels, and then a megawatt plant is thousands of panels. Wow. So obviously thousands of panels, you need a big roof, or you can utilize empty parking lots, which is also very preferable, very looked for solution, especially in the retail sector. So these 140 kilowatts is our average. Actually, it would be a bit higher, but we have like 6 small deals that that's why we have this average. But usually in the 100 to 200 range is our most common size. and this is more or less equivalent of a 2.2 million investment. In terms of paying for the installations, there's obviously other costs. And all of this was funded internally, so coming from our holding and a joint venture, because we don't have any senior debt in Portugal. So that's why also this is so interesting to search for alternative funding sources.
Exactly. And one interesting aspect is really how this decentralized solar business scales, like how the deals are coming in, which we're going to talk, and what we envision how Younergy Crypto community can exactly adapt that pace of installations, because that is the flexibility of the crowd, right? Once we have the smart contracts established and people are interacting with them regularly, going through these emissions on a regular basis, getting to know the solar asset managers, which you are throughout the years, I do believe that the pace of this decentralized processes that you have to build a decentralized utility of solar is going to be matched very well by the decentralized finance opportunity. So super cool.
Just to give you one more idea about our types of projects we have and the types of clients, we go after any project that is any client that is commercial, so companies, and we have a different variety of sectors, most of them in manufacturing and engineering, but also within manufacturing, we see that Portugal is very strong in textile in the north, and there's also a lot of retail facilities, both supermarkets and gas stations. Controversially, they still need energy to run. We have that sports facility, a hotel, and also an agro type client. But I would say our most clients that are looking right now for solar are in the industry sector, because they suffer the most from the increases of price of energy of last year.
Yeah.
So,
which is also super cool, because they're also the biggest causes of carbon emissions if they keep using power from fossil fuel power.
they also have the biggest need to electrification. They still rely on a lot of fuels as well for many of the processes. And as they start electrifying, because there's a lot of push to electrify certain processes, their energy consumption increases further.
Goes up. So solar and maybe on storage keeps making more and more sense for most of them. One question about the textile or textile industry: are these like production facilities of clothing, or?
Yes, both for the fabric and also end pieces clothing.
Fantastic. Yes. I will ask for them. You might want to get our Younergy Crypto swag t-shirts.
Yes.
Where we can prove that they were actually also produced with clean energy, and can actually prove this whole sustainability aspect on chain. That's also something Paula is looking into. So
yeah, just wanted to say my background is fashion design, and I do a lot of research also on sustainable fashion. So this is something that's really interesting me also regarding Portugal, especially.
Great.
Super cool. Can I ask a little question?
Of course.
So how does it usually work? You get these projects in, do they come to you, or are you doing acquisition? Do you have a sales team, or?
So no, as I said before, we don't have a sales team in place. So this is my next slide. I'll explain exactly that. So how do we come from like these potential interested companies that are looking for solar? How do they know about us, Younergy? So we have within our platform, Udera, it's not only for us internally a platform to manage our existing sites, it's also a place for our partners, and I have a list here of our network, some of the partners we have in Portugal and that use this platform, Youdera. What they can do in there is they can simulate for a specific site what is the PPA rate that customer can get if Younergy is going to invest, and of course they need to let us know what's the investment amount. They let us know about the main characteristics of the project and how much it's estimated to be produced. And so in real time, they can simulate a PPA and extract an offer, which then they present to the customer. So this is done the idea here was to give the partners all the tools to be able to simulate what's the best for each client, because scenarios are very different. So we're very flexible when it comes to the contract length and contract, if there's amortization during the contract, if there's longer periods, if there's a residual value at the end. So all of that, we put it on the hands of our partners to best simulate according to the needs of the clients. So that's how we drive 99% of our business. Then maybe there's a small effort, something we're discussing internally is to also have some key clients that we might go after ourselves and then connect them with one of our installers.
Mm.
And then how do we go from signing a contract with a client to an operational plant? Well, there's a lot of steps between one and the other. It's something like probably over 100 little steps that need to be done. So for that, Younergy definitely has a strong focus on digital, using digital tools. So we leverage on Youdera, and we have some other tools that allow us to manage all these different things. So we do obviously always a risk assessment of these off-takers before we sign any PPA contract. We need to be sure that these companies are going to be operational for the next 10, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also do a more thorough due diligence, both on the technical side of things, as well as on legal and financial analysis of the end users. And yes.
That's basically super interesting thing to point out, because now we're bringing more or less real world assets, and even if we start by their carbon value first, it comes to the same when we want to capture all the value, right? So that there is at least one process done by one actor or many, right, to assess these risks. And as you say, you are doing it taking full advantage of data and systems that you have. Plus, that data analysis is fed with the domain expertise, meaning solar, but also the business side, or from analysis of previous consumption and so on. So there is a lot that goes into this before we even will see any offers or any opportunities in Younergy Crypto showing up. So that's I think is something that we definitely need to make clear, also that there is a whole domain specific due diligence going on before any projects are docked on. And the opportunities or the things that we can show that are for finance is basically those projects that went through simulation, information, and offer potentially, but not yet contract. So there is this opportunities that we can fund, and so that the YC community participants can already rally up the next token emission on the one side, so that on the other side, you know that how much potential funding is available. But at the not at the end, but after the start, already pretty soon, we'd love to go into a mode of this rolling funds. That's also a notion that we know from, well, we know from the startup world, but also Web3, the rolling funds that through tokenization and through distributed participation, something that can be implemented in a pretty elegant way. So just to make an anchor here.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, before we even go to funding or financing a project, actually the whole due diligence approval and the contracts will have been signed, basically. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Just to finalize on this and on all the data that we collect about the projects. Once the systems are being installed, we also always put in production and self-consumption meters so that we can get that data and then connect it also to our platform. This is how we build the customers, and this is also how we know if the solar assets are performing as they should. So I can skip past the next slide and show you just a few print screens of our platform, just to have an idea of the systems. If the color schemes showing if they're overperforming, performing well, or not so well, and if we need to intervene, and also that so all of this is handled in just one platform, which is extremely helpful. And this is how we bill our customers. To give an idea, these contracts are mostly 10 or 15 years long. Mm-hmm. So this is a really long relationship we're going to have with these clients. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's very important to do things right from the start. There's a lot of companies offering solar, and there's more and more companies interested in investing and owning assets. But there's not many companies that are ready for the volume and the amount of work it is to do this. Right. And also have this visibility. We want to hold these assets until the end. So our interest is when we sign a 15-year agreement is that in 15 years, someone is going to go there and give a handshake and say, well, thank you. It was a pleasure.
So that's the also something that we need to emphasize, right? So we have these smart contracts that are like handshakes, digital handshakes. Mm-hmm. On blockchain, where you might not even know who is behind the address, right? But most likely in our Younergy Crypto community, that will also be quite different, because we're starting with getting people on board who are value aligned, looking not just at this financial value, but the carbon emissions avoidance, and really valuing that much higher than any commodity markets can or will in the foreseeable future, because there is a big movement that is also getting bigger inside Web3 that is all about increasing the impact that we can have through better coordination of decentralized players. So that definitely is something I want to put forth. So we have these handshakes that run from totally autonomous between smart contracts, then between Younergy Crypto community participants that maybe meet online. Maybe we'll have meeting places locally as well. Very likely. But then, as you say, there is the handshake that is going to be there for the next 15 years between Younergy and the people who are using the solar electricity and solar power from the rooftops. So I find that somehow soothing. And it's this new combination of the entirely human, entirely domain specific with this community aspect. So really look forward to see this play out well.
And also about giving control and allowing customers to better use up the value of solar. View that also has a side login for end users, and where they can monitor themselves, also the plants, so they can see how much the systems are producing and how much they're self-consuming. And something that is not talked about a lot in the energy space is how to better use your production so that you minimize how much is going into the grid. So changing behaviors could be harder, and on the other hand easier to do in a company where they can change a bit how things are processed, so that it matches better the solar production, which is generally a quite round curve during the day, especially in Portugal.
In Portugal, is energy efficiency, for example, in Germany, there are a lot of also like solar installers, independent energy efficiency consultants and service providers who work with commercial and industrial to get them become more energy efficient. And
for sure, and there's incentives, mainly through subsidies, in place for that, but I would still say it's more on the production or avoidance side, so like changing lighting systems, changing machinery, is not so much about changing behavior and changing consumption patterns. That's what I would say, that's the next level. That's harder. One thing that Portugal is doing good is at least is getting ready for that, because from what I've seen, all of our clients and most of our potential clients do have smart meters already in place, so they do have access to their energy profiles. And as just now, the next step is to utilize that in the good.
And as you say, I don't know, I think you also go into the incentive schemes. Maybe at the end we can come back to that. But what I also believe, when we are on the finance side or financial, well, actually with Younergy Crypto, we're going really on the value side. It's not just the financial aspect, actually not at all, but the environmental aspect that you can capture and then turn into incentive mechanisms that then at the end pay out as a financial flow. But it's really interesting to have these incentive mechanisms. And we will see how we, as a community of funders, offsetters, and like what you're doing with the customers and getting them to see their potential of increasing the energy efficiency, that again can increase the carbon value of these projects, which again is worth something for the offsetters that are in Web3. So showing these incentive mechanisms, how they can compound over time, and also either add to existing incentive schemes regionally, or be something on top of them. That is definitely, Joanna, a topic where we come back a couple of times in the next year for sure. It's good to see that.
Well, on that for sure, I just have here a couple of print screens that I took the last days since you asked me to give this talk. I decided, okay, I need to learn more about what are the incentives right now in place in Portugal. And to be honest, they're rather old school and ineffective. The subsidies, there's a lot of subsidies that came in place in the last year to promote the economy revamp after COVID-19. But it's all about long subsidy applications that might never end in anything. So even customers are demotivated. But it stalls the industry. It stalls the solar development in the country, unfortunately. So more than doing good, it often has a negative impact of clients delaying decisions, not signing with us, or and just keep thinking about what's going to happen. Can I get some money from the government, basically? And in terms of the guarantees of origin, which is another incentive scheme in place in Portugal, it's highly complex. I just took a print screen of all the different documents that are available to read. And just one of them, the handbook with the procedure, it's 100 pages. And from what I could gather, it requires each producer to again register their plant, celebrate a contract with the entity that is emitting these green certificates, these guarantees of origin. Yeah, there's costs associated because they need to audit this. So I thought this process was going to be simpler because in Portugal, you already need, when you're connecting a plant to the grid, which all of our plants are connected to the grid, you already go through a process and the sites already need to be inspected. I thought then it would be easier to get these guarantees of origin, but no, that's a whole different thing that needs to happen. I suspect most of the clients that have solar they don't do anything about this. This is just an incentive that's not there.
That's the state of affairs all over Europe for over a decade. I don't know how long I've been involved already on this side, really. And you come to the conclusion also in Germany, they were very pro incentives in the beginning, but then also in between things happened, like pulling the rug. That all of a sudden you got much less than it was the previous administration was meaning. So with every new election, you are left to the opinion of the new elected party. So that's something you don't want to have in your business, right? And also something it doesn't make sense, as you pointed towards, this information already exist in the system, but because these are players who don't open up their systems, or oftentimes also the certifiers aren't fully digital. Many things still have to go through manual processes and emails and PDFs. So that's a lot of paperwork, even if it's in PDF, for any company that needs to see where is my focus, will decide not to realize that value. So that is definitely something, again, Web3, we're all about rewiring value flows and creating new incentive schemes to coordinate better. And in Younergy Crypto, our goal is to coordinate better towards seeing more solar on more rooftops, right? And here I believe we have a really good lever, building on the digital first infrastructure that you have built and are using, and docking on smart contracts to the data that we have coming from these systems is really something like we can really be proud of. we're the first one that now pulled this off, but also at a time where it makes sense, where many things came together, where also on the digital side of things, at least from the Web3 side, I can tell patterns emerge, not best practices, but patterns, how we can capture these values and how we can create incentive mechanisms. Still, how we can participate as not just consumers, but as participants, that is something new, and that is something Paula and I will put more of our hearts and heads into, how we can really activate people to see this potential that they can help leverage by their participation, by their active participation. On the offsetter or YC token participant side. Cool.
Cool. So I put you one last slide, or second last slide, of our two most important groups of people that we work with. Our solar partners, which we call often our main clients. as or we are their clients because we buy their solar systems, but without them there would be no business. And what's the current relationship? Although it's very digital, it's becoming more and more obvious that it's very important, this personal relationship. A lot of these companies are quite small, and I know that's something that also you were assessing on how can we support these solar companies in one of their hurdles, which is lack of working capital. When they buy the materials to start the installations, usually cost of materials something like 70%. But not end users and not Younergy, we cannot advance that type of money. It's a balance of risk and benefit. So that's one of the hurdles we've been seeing. And I mean, last year was a very strong year for solar in Portugal. It was the best so far. I know that the capacity was more than doubled in the country. I was had the biggest growth rate of all of Europe. And with that come a lot of challenges. Of course, there was a lack of materials. There's a lack of resources, human resources to install all of the solar that was sold. So I mean, there's a lot of companies in the market. It's a lot of things are happening, and there's some underlying issues that for sure need to be supported. And this being one of them.
So the one thing about the training, and definitely will make a marker on that, as in, you know, community learning training. That could be also something midterm, where, like these communities have a way of disseminating learning. What I've seen, which is very powerful. Of course, again, this is engineering and craftsmanship, so it also has its own learning and apprenticeship culture for sure. However, the other thing that I see here is the materials part. I do believe that is where we can also mid to long term for sure have where we will see beneficial network effects by connecting or by working in ecosystems that doesn't even have anything to do with the tokens or incentives. It always has to do with incentives. But without even tokenizing, to see that we can prove where the materials are coming, but also that they have a recycling path, for example, and actually opening up connections to those networks that can make everyone's life easier, but at the same time also prove that the solar panels have a life cycle that is circular. So that is definitely something we would look at midterm for sure, because again, ecosystem and network effects is something that we can open up and connect to, and that those materials, that is definitely something that could benefit from ecosystems thinking and practice. And on the other side, you have the clients.
Yes. In terms of clients, from what I see, we're not talking about residential, we're talking about companies. The main motivation is still cost savings. I mean, perhaps if the owners of these companies are somewhat younger, they might have the environmental side point also in their heads, but mostly it's about saving, and there's still a lot of fluctuation and volatility in these markets and electricity markets, as we can see in this scheme that I pointed out here. So this the interest in solar comes and goes as electricity prices rise and fall. But for sure, this is what drives the market. And undoubtedly, costs of solar are lower than the electricity grids. Now it's just a matter of how to communicate this to the clients, and how we can help our solar partners to communicate this to the clients. Clients often don't have the knowledge or the time to monitor these markets and really understand it's so complex. that it's hard. But it's really important that two trends I still see, and I hope they change over time, is that companies take a long time to decide.
Right.
Because they're still seeing what's going to happen, or interest rates. They still believe that electricity prices are going perhaps down. And there's a lot of offers on the table as well. Right now, there's usually when a client receives an offer from us, they already have a few on their hands, and often more than 5, somewhere close to 10 offers, and then it becomes hard to analyze which is best for me. And for sure, there's a lot of companies that make some interesting designs and have some interesting selling points. So this communication and learning about the values of solar is very important.
Yeah. And also that's something that Paula was like, what? why isn't everyone jumping on solar? Like the cost saving that you can have is actually immense. Not to talk about the environmental impact as a producer, one way or the other, or over long or short, you will have to price that in, even if the regulators, let you go. The brand or the consumers are increasingly looking into, right? So I believe there are multiple things that could be communicated. But
well, for sure that lack of capital is often pointed out as the main reason why there's no solar on every rooftop. But there are many solutions for sure in the CNI space. So it's just a matter of now convincing that these companies that a PPA contract really has all these benefits. From what I've been seeing is there's a lot of skepticism. It's like too good to be true. This mentality, it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Why isn't this hurting? Why is this so easy? Why did I get my offer in 3 days? Well, it's digital. No, it's cool. I think that, but these are the things I do believe turning them over, like turning these pain points over, will be actually fun thing to do with the communication. Cool.
I don't know if you want to talk about this, just some ideas for the future. Something that is becoming hotter and hotter topic in Portugal and Spain and in other European countries is clean energy communities.
Yeah,
it's definitely an angle that Younergy is looking out for. Just some news here about the biggest communities already in place in Portugal, but also on the other hand, for you don't understand maybe Portuguese, but in this article in the front, it says that there's 57 communities that are waiting for a license to operate in over a year. So there's obviously still, the law here is very looking towards the future, but there's still a lot of admin hurdles to be overcome. But it is an interesting concept. Basically, one or more production centers, one or more solar systems, and then several users. And the idea is here obviously to minimize the energy that goes into the grid, because one of the biggest difficulties with more renewables in the system is to get this energy to where it needs to go. So obviously self-consumption, the idea is to consume it on site. So by adding more and more users that have different patterns of consumption, you can drive the self-consumption to close to 100%. So that's something that we will also look into. And
that's the optimization potential, and that you can do if you have the data and the controls. And there it's also quite interesting. Again, that is the area where actually price signals or incentive schemes through the financing side can play a big role in changing behavior or optimizing or creating the makeup of this renewable energy community. Super interesting. But as you point out, the European regulation, the directive, is out since 2019. And I am sure that the local governments will take their sweet time to enact it. Nonetheless, we were super pleased to see it even mentioned as peer-to-peer energy in the documents of the European Commission. So there is a political will at high levels, but then can really come from the consumer, funder, solar partner, like what we are setting up as a network community, can be a big political voice also, a big push that makes this possible, or that demands for regulations come forward, because it is technically possible, and from a social perspective and political perspective, we as participants are pushing for it. That is how we can, you know, from above and and below, can create these movements and help make meaningful laws pass faster. So that's definitely a bet we can take as well. Joana, thank you so much for putting this together. As you know, we just look forward to the first pool, how we structure it and so on, becoming clearer by the day, and look forward to plan this Portugal pool campaign with you. Paula will come visit, and we will certainly share more of your experiences with the community, and maybe have a session like these AMA Ask Me Anything sessions that are
super interesting. I actually have so many questions, but Younergy Crypto School is starting in 2 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah,
we'll talk more.
Yeah, I really learned a lot. So I will actually ask you out in a month when I'm there, if you have time.
Record that session too. Everything is worth sharing. Okay.
Yeah, super cool. No, super interesting. I'm pretty new to this field, so everything is like super exciting for me and to learn. And yeah, as Shabnam said, it's like I still have kind of this sentence in my mind. It's just too good to be true. So, why isn't it all over the place yet?
That's true, yeah.
There are a few misaligned incentives that we need to get over, and some mindset change as well. So that's why let's get started with the Younergy Crypto School. Okay,
let's go
thank
to
you,
school.
everyone. I'll stop
Thank you very much.
recording for now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.